Thank you. First of all, thank you guys so much for coming. I'm like psyched to be here. I've come here for lunch. My husband works here. He's a product manager at Search. So I've seen the glass box kitchen and I'm like, ooh, I want to be in there. I was very excited to see that I can be here. So I'm going to be doing 3 desserts for you guys. They're very simple. The idea from this cookbook was really, I wanted to share Indian desserts in a way where it wasn't just, here's a cake with some cardamom in it, or here is another cake with some saffron in it. I wanted to really touch upon desserts that I grew up with, that my mom made, and then desserts I really wanted, but my mom would never make, like brownies and cakes and cookies. Like, it was just not gonna happen. Most homes in India don't have ovens. So my mom never grew up baking, but I would watch those Duncan Hine commercials and I would see like the grandma making cookies or like, you know, the little kid licking the spatula after like mixing brownies, and I wanted that. And I think like most Indian Americans, like first generation Indian Americans, you know, you want everything but Indian food when you get home. And that was definitely the case for me. So this is kind of where it all started from. So I'm going to be making the Besan burfi first. It's super easy. It's just ghee and chickpea flour that's toasted together until the chickpea flour cooks. A lot of Indian desserts do use like a toasted flour, whether it be chickpea flour, whole wheat flour, even millet. And then it's kind of cut into a fudge. If you've ever had tahini, like halva, it's very similar in texture to that. Typically, you use it making a josni, which is a thick, simple syrup, but it can be really hard to make. And sometimes, like most Indian moms, they do it off tuition, the similar whole of like one finger's worth of ginger and a fistful of sugar and like 2 cups, which is like the cup they use in their home, of water. And you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't do this. So I use powdered sugar instead to help it set. It's much faster and easier. So the first thing you're gonna do is take about 1.5 cups of ghee, which seems like a lot, I know, but you're gonna melt it down. And this is gonna make about 25 to 30 bites. And if you wanna make it even thinner, you could put it in like an 8x8 pan and make 64 bites out of it. So you're gonna melt the ghee down until it's completely liquefied. Let me get this ripping and roaring. And get that melted. Now I'm going to be using chickpea flour. If you go to the Indian store to buy it, it'll be called Besan, B-E-S-A-N. And there's different coarses and textures you can get. You want the finest texture. My mom likes to do like a mixture of fine and coarse. It's really up to you. And if you want like kind of a grittier texture or not. I use Bob's Red Mill on a regular day if I'm at Safeway and I just don't want to take a trip to the Indian store. Bob's Red Mill does a really fine garbanzo bean flour. So I'm going to let this melt. And you're pretty much using equal parts ghee to chickpea flour in this recipe. I also use semolina in it, which is called rava, not rava, suji. S-O-O-J-I if you're at the Indian store. It's just a coarse durum wheat. It adds texture. If you want to make it gluten-free, you don't have to add it at all. It's not necessary. It's only like 3 tablespoons of semolina that you're adding. So that's melted enough. So I'm going to add the chickpea flour, my suji. I'm going to let this go and mix very well. Now, this is something that you don't want to walk away from because it will burn. You're going to keep mixing it, and it'll keep going. So while I do this, I'll quickly talk about kind of how I ended up here. I went to school as a biochem major. I was going to do what every good Indian kid does, which is either become an engineer, a doctor, or a business person. And I was like, yeah, healthcare, let's do it. Why not? So I was a biochem major, and I worked as an analytical chemist after I graduated, working on anti-cancer drugs. And I realized very quickly that the lab life is not for me. I just was not happy. So I became a medical biller in grad school. I did my master's in biomedical sciences, and I worked as a nanny. As a medical biller, I kind of got a pretty decent idea of like how the billing system worked, and I ended up working at Columbia University Medical Center as a reporting analyst, kind of putting my, my analytical chemistry skills to the test. Or not my chemistry, my spreadsheet skills to the test. So one of the things we did on Masterchef is they would have us, our hair and makeup is all done, by the way. Like none of that stuff is under my control. My clothing, I had a wardrobe stylist, we had a makeup artist, we had someone that made our look. It was curated. And my hair was always down and I hated it. And I would get so mad about it that I would hide hair scrunchies like in my bra or in my pocket if I could, so I could put my hair up and they could never say anything to me. Because I'm already cooking on set, they're not gonna come and have me change my hair because it'll mess up with continuity. But it's always stressful. So I ended up coming out here as a healthcare consultant. My husband got his dream job at YouTube. So we were like, all right, San Francisco is the place to be. And then I realized I hated being a healthcare consultant. It wasn't for me. I was forever yelling at people, like insurance companies, to pay hospitals over the phone. And he had gotten a rotation in Singapore. And while he was there, he called me and he's like, you hate your job, just quit. Come to Singapore, figure your stuff out, and just, we'll make it happen. It'll be fine. So I quit, and it was the first time in my life where I had someone financially backing me, because my parents both lost their jobs as freshmen, as you heard, and there was no like, mommy and daddy can pay my rent, or mommy and daddy can cover my healthcare, or whatever it may be. It wasn't an option. It was always like survival. So I went, and after we got back, he made me try out for Masterchef. I didn't think anything was going to come out of it. I actually tried to get out of it auditioning, and he like dragged me out of bed and was like, no, you're doing this. And somehow I made it on the show as the token vegetarian that season. I did well. I cried a lot. Right now it's like their season 10, so they're like showing a lot of flashbacks of like, you know, past seasons. And of course, like all the flashbacks for me are like me sobbing in a corner, just like upset about life. But I don't know why they chose that. But once I got off the show, I was really convinced, like I really wanted to be in food. So I started working at food startups initially. Then I started consulting different startups, writing recipes for them. So I worked with Back to the Roots, which is based out of Oakland. They do like the mushroom in a kit boxes, and they have a bunch of cereals. So I created a lot of recipes for their website for them and their social media. And by word of mouth, it just kind of blew up. So right now, this is gonna get foamy. That's fine, that's normal. And you're gonna smell like the raw smell of the chickpea flour, and you're gonna keep going until it starts smelling nutty instead. And it really depends on like the brand you're using. So just really use your nose. In the book, I use 10 to 12 minutes, but a lot of it is, I'll say like, until it starts smelling fragrant or until it starts smelling nutty. Indian food in general tends to base a lot of its cooking off scent and fragrance. Like you'll see recipes that are like, add ginger, garlic, and cook until fragrant, then add the next. So it really is a lot of, you know, putting your head over the bowl and really smelling, is that done? Is it right? Which kind of really came to use when I was on Masterchef, because I cooked a lot of meat dishes and I'd never cooked meat in my life. And people are like, how did you do it? And I'm like, senses. I just touched and I was like, yeah, that feels right. That feels good. This smells right. And just kind of used my Indian auntie cooking intuition to make it happen. I ended up winning most of the meat challenges on the show, which I still don't get how I did, but it's okay. As long as Gordon Ramsay didn't yell at me and tell me things were raw, I was fine and happy. All right. So I think it's been, 5 minutes, right? I'm gonna crank it up to 9. So definitely make sure you keep mixing. I know it's a labor of love, but this is much faster than the traditional method. My mom would spend like hours in front of the stove making like different Indian desserts. I use a lot of shortcuts in the book. The first chapter is creams, custards, and puddings. A lot of Indian desserts are based in milk and different forms of milk and milk fat. So we have koya, which is like when you cook milk down and you just have the milk fat, and that's it. Or mawa is the same thing. And then you use that to kind of make fudge or little desserts. Paneer obviously is a big base for a lot of Indian desserts, for like ras malai and chum-chums and things like that. All right, so I think we are there. I'm going to move that off the heat. I'm just going to quickly give it a mix. And in here, I'm going to add my powdered sugar, my cardamom. So I use green cardamom in the entire book. And then this is salt. So salt is like the sacrilege thing that my mom was like, why are you putting salt in Indian desserts? She was not about that. One of the things that Indian desserts, the stereotypes is like they're too sweet, which they can be, yes. But I think it's a lot of the time, it's because they don't use salt to balance the sweetness in most of the desserts. And what I find is adding salt really, really helps, even if my mom's not into it. She always gets very upset when I do that. Can I get a hand real quick? Thank you. Perfect. That's fine. I'll use that. Thank you. And you're gonna mix this in. Don't touch it. It is really, really hot. I've definitely made the mistake of touching it and burning my finger. And I have asbestos hands. Like, I've made the mistake of like pulling a cast iron skillet out of the oven barehanded. It happens. But don't touch this mixture. It's gonna be really, really hot. So you're gonna bring that together. And it's gonna have kind of the texture of like a non-Newtonian fluid where like it'll kind of settle back on itself a little bit and look almost liquidy. But if you mix it, it feels thick, similar like if you add cornstarch to water. And that's because powdered sugar is cut with cornstarch. So now that's all mixed in, you can take a 9x5 pan that's greased generously with ghee, or you can line it with parchment paper. It's really whatever you find easiest. I just grease it with ghee because it's fast. And you're gonna pour the mixture in and really get everything in there. And this stuff will last you like weeks, months, really, if you put it in an airtight container in the fridge. So let's do that, clean it up, give it a couple taps, and it evens out. And I just sprinkle the top. This is not traditional at all, but I like the texture. You're just gonna sprinkle the top with some slivered almonds. I think it just looks nice. And now that's it. And you're gonna let this set at room temperature, or you could pop it in the fridge. But if you pop it in the fridge, take it out and let it temper at room temperature before cutting, because if you cut it while it's really cold, it'll kind of break into shards. I mean, it's fine, you can put it on ice cream, it's delicious. But if you want it to be like really nice, perfect little squares, it's nice to let it temper for a little bit. So in my book, I use brown butter ghee instead of regular ghee. This was a mistake that I kind of learned from. One day I was making ghee at home. I walked away from it and I came back and it was like black. And I was like, oh crap, like I totally messed this up. But butter's expensive and I was not about to let that go in the trash. So I was like, I'm just gonna strain it and see what happens. So I strained it and it ended up being like the best ghee I've ever made in my life. So that's kind of what I use. It has a really nice nutty flavor. It's just basically brown butter. So butter in America is 80%. It consists of 3 things: water, fat, and a little bit of like milk solids. Butter in America is usually 80% milk fat. European style can go like 82%. And there's some that you can get, like if you buy local butter, it's probably 86% butter fat. So what you're basically doing is you're taking it from butter to clarified butter, which is if you ever had like lobster or lobster, crabs, things like that, the butter that you dip in, that's clarified butter. That's essentially when all the water has just been evaporated off. You haven't caramelized any of the milk fat. It's just the water is gone and all you have is 100% butter fat. And that has a really high smoke point. You can cook with it. You can basically cook with it up to 450 degrees. Now, if you take it a step further, you get ghee, which is when you just slightly toast the milk fat. And it turns kind of brown and you get little bits on the bottom and you strain that. Now, brown butter ghee is you take it till it's black. You take the milk fat till it turns black completely. And you strain it, but there's still gonna be little pieces of caramelized milk fat in the ghee itself. You're not trying to like 100% remove all of it. And it's a little bit browner and nuttier and has more depth and flavor. So I'm gonna let this kind of cook down. So this is the ghee that the team here, the brown butter ghee that the team here at Google made. I'm gonna move everything over there. So when I was a kid, my mom would wait until like the butter would go on sale at our local ShopRite. And she would hand my sister, me, and like 5 of my cousins coupons. And because there's coupons, there's a limit on how much butter you can buy. So she would hand us all then 4 packs of butter and then make us all line up in different aisles, give us all cash. And then we'd all have to buy the butter to get around the limit. And then we'd get home and sit in a circle and like open up all the butter sticks to make a giant vat of ghee, which always happened to be like in middle of the summer. And she would make enough ghee for like 3 households for the year. Every summer. It was just like the house smelled of butter, everything, like your hair, everything smelled of ghee. So now at this point, you see there's like some kind of a white a white foam that's kind of hanging out on top. At this point, it's clarified butter. It's not clear. There's still a little bit of milk fat. Now we're gonna take it a little further. Also, this is much cheaper. Make your own ghee. Ghee is like $30 for a small jar at like Whole Foods. You can buy a pound of butter for like $5.99 and make yourself a pint for like $6. It's so much cheaper than buying ghee. Also, there's 2 types of ghee. There's desi ghee and there's like the regular ghee. So desi ghee is usually made with cultured butter. Which is basically heavy cream that's been cultured with yogurt. And then you whip that, you remove the butter from the heavy cream, or the fat from the heavy cream, and then you have cultured butter. And then when you make that into ghee, you get desi ghee. It has a bit more funky smell to it, very grassy, a little bit more like farmish, kind of like cheesy kind of smell to it. But it's great with like savory foods. But it is a lot of work because you've got to like wait a couple days and really think ahead about it. I personally like to use Blue Grub butter to make my ghee, but use whatever's on sale. Be like my mom, which is Land O'Lakes. That's the butter we use. So it's going to come to a boil. So you see all the water is now starting to really come off. That's what's coming out, all that steam. And there's 2 ways to do this. You can do this low and slow, like put it in a big pot, put it on low heat and walk away and come back an hour later, or like mixing every 20 minutes. Or you can like let it rip on the stove and just stand over it and just stir until it gets to where you want it to go. There's no right or wrong. It's just some people like to go low and slow because they believe it develops more flavor. I've tried that at home and I really haven't seen much of a difference, to be honest. But everyone's got their way.
You might have mentioned this, but on the ghee and the butter that you use, are you using unsalted always?
Oh yeah, unsalted always, because the salt will concentrate when you're boiling off all the water, right? It's gonna concentrate and it's gonna get really salty and not so tasty. So always use unsalted butter for this, for sure. Save the salted butter for like when you have really good crusty bread.
Any audience questions? It smells amazing in here, by the way, Chef.
It's gonna foam up a little. I guess that's the plus of having an induction top. You can just wipe it off, right? I only say this because my husband and I recently bought a new home, and when we were looking, he's like, why can't we just have an induction top? And I'm like, no, we need to have gas. That's all I know how to cook on. And now I heard Berkeley banned gas tops in their new buildings. Like, they don't allow it anymore, which I was like, oh. And if you're in a good Indian household that has induction tops, they also have like a little Coleman burner that they'll put on the side to make roti with, because your roti needs to be charred a little. So my mom will like pull out a Coleman burner, like a camping grill, and make a roti on that.
I have a quick question as far as storage. So in your book, you mentioned that you can refrigerate these for 2 weeks or longer. Can you freeze these as well?
Oh yeah, totally. You can definitely freeze it. Oh yeah, I wanted to quickly touch upon the cardamom that I use too. So I use green cardamom. There's also black cardamom. Green cardamom pods. When you're buying cardamom, you do not want the cardamom to be perfectly green all the way around. That means there are pesticides used. So cardamom is grown. I recently learned this. If you guys heard of Diaspora Co., it's this wonderful woman here in the Bay Area who owns a spice company where she buys directly from farmers, and she buys heirloom spices. So when the British first were in India, they pretty much killed off all the heirloom varieties of spices, and we're only selling one kind. And there's an Indian spice. She works with the Indian Spice Institute and has gotten a lot of these heirloom varieties grown. So her first product was Pragati turmeric, which is a a couple 100-year-old heirloom turmeric variety that's really high in curcumin, and works with a farmer in India and has gotten it out here, and she did wonderful. And she just launched cardamom. And one of the things she did is she tested a bunch of cardamom to see if they're organic. And a lot of them failed the pesticide test. A lot of organic brands. And it's because they have these bugs called thrips. They don't hurt the cardamom, they just cause scarring on the pod, which can be seen, unfortunately, as imperfect, and people won't buy it. So if you ever do see perfectly green cardamom, there's probably pesticides used on it. And if you see scarring, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with the cardamom inside. The only thing you're looking for is you want to make sure that the ends of the cardamom haven't split open, because that means they were picked too late and all the aromatics gone. The oils probably gone. So you want them to be at least sealed. So now we're at the brown butter stage. If I could get the foam to move, you'll see it's like a nice super dark brown. I think you can see it on the, yes. So it's like a nice dark brown. You'll see my spatula is kind of coated in brown little bits. So I kind of take it just a little bit further, and this goes fast. So I'm gonna make it until it goes super dark, and it's there. And then you strain it real quick through cheesecloth. And you see at the bottom of my pan, it's black, right? I want that milk fat to be completely black. And that's where all that flavor is. Now, when I was a kid, my mom would only do this until it got light brown. And then she'd save the milk fat and put it in rice with some ghee and jaggery as a little treat. So you're gonna save the milk fat for these cookies. And you have the ghee here, and you can just pour that into a jar. And it smells amazing. It's very nutty. I like to make ghee toast in the morning with my chai. And just slather some ghee, put it in the toaster, and it's so good. So to make the cookies, yeah, it's open. I'm gonna add, hold on. Oh wait, that's wrong. I'm looking at it, I'm why is that so off to me? I'm gonna add my ghee to it and my sugar. And I'm gonna let that rip for a little bit till it's kind of light and fluffy and really well mixed. So in most baking recipes, you're going to beat the sugar with the fat, and that's just so that you can get some airiness in your dessert. So the longer you let it rip, the fluffier, the lighter your cake or cookie will be. Let's do that. All right, so I let that go for a little bit. And this is the milk fat from the strainer that you've pulled out. I use about 1.5 teaspoons, and you're gonna add that in. And that adds just like this caramelly, nutty, really nice flavor. You can even add it to pasta. Oh my God, it's so good. You can do like sage pasta, like regular pasta, toast some sage in the ghee, add the a little bit of the caramelized milk fat, and it's just delicious with a little bit of salt, maybe a touch of garlic. It's so delicious. So you're gonna add that in. It's really nice and well mixed in. Sugar, and then you're gonna add your vanilla. And your salt, and mix that in as well. So this is an eggless cookie recipe. So I'm gonna scrape this down real quick. Now, this was kind of a base off of like a Scottish shortbread. Scottish shortbread cookies typically put like rice flour and almond flour in their cookies. I just use all-purpose flour because it's easier, and I figured I'd do a nut-free option because Indian desserts tend to be very nut-forward and nut-heavy. I'm gonna add in my all-purpose flour. Let's pull this up. This is awkward to do backwards. Oops. And you're gonna mix this just until it's combined. You don't want to overmix it because you're going to create a lot of gluten in the flour, and you're then going to get a really hard kind of crumbly, not so good in textured biscuit. There we go. Also, different all-purpose flours have different protein contents. So like King Arthur flour is a pretty high protein flour. It's great if you want to make pizza or pastas, but not so great for, say, a light fluffy cookie or a light fluffy cake because there's so much protein, and meaning you'll develop a lot more gluten in it, and it won't be as soft, and you won't get the right texture that you want. So I'm gonna bring it together. It's gonna be very crumbly. And use your hands, get in there, be like real Indian auntie style, get your hands in. I cook a lot with my hands. It's just better. Again, you can like feel what's right. I feel like a lot of dough and cookie making in general is very much like that. And then you're gonna press it into your pan. So I'm using like a 8x8 cooking dish. You could put it in a tart pan if you want to get extra fancy with the fluted edges. Up to you. Let's put that here. So I just kind of break up the big chunks. As long as there's no big chunks of butter, you're good. You don't want like a slab of butter in there. And then you're gonna just push it down with your hands into an even layer. And then I like to use like the bottom of a bowl or the bottom of a cup. This will work. And just really get it in there. My mom has stainless steel cups at home that I like to use because they have like a nice rounded bottom, so they really get in that corner. So once it's in and it's flattened, you're gonna dock it with a fork. And what that's gonna do is make sure that it's not gonna puff up too much, and it's gonna be evenly baked. So you dock it all the way down with a fork, kind of like when you see those Scottish shortbread cookies, the Walker biscuits. You see a little 4 holes in them. And you're gonna bake it at 325 for about, I wanna say 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 to 25 minutes, and then you can cut them. So while they're hot, you're gonna cut it, but then let them cool completely and then remove it. Otherwise, they'll still be a little crumbly and still they'll fall apart in your hands if you try to take them out while they're hot. And the last dessert is really a play on like something that my mom forced me to have when I was a kid that I hated, which is haldar no doodh, which is turmeric milk, which is like all the raised now, but I'm growing up as like a 9-year-old, I was like, I did not want that. And my mom would make me drink it in the winters because of all the reasons why people are drinking it now, which is it's good for you and it helps you, fight bacteria and all that good stuff. So I would fight my mom. Like, I did not want it. And it's not like the turmeric milk that you have at like cafes. Like, you go to the cafe and they'll give you like a tablespoon of turmeric and a small cup of milk, and then all you get is like grit. That is not how you usually typically have it. It would be like a pinch, a quarter teaspoon in a cup of milk, just enough to color it. And even then, the taste of raw turmeric is not the best. So my mom would add saffron and cardamom to it to make it taste better for me. And just to get me to drink it because I was not having it. I was a very picky eater when I was a kid. So in a saucepan, you're gonna basically add heavy cream, about 2 cups. You're gonna add your cardamom, saffron. Another quick tip, I like to use Rumi Spices saffron. Rumi is a saffron company that gets their saffron from Afghanistan. They employ over 3,000 women to help pick their saffron and provide business to them. So I think nowadays people are very conscientious of where they source their produce from. People want to know who their farmers are. People want to know who's making their food, but a lot of times that doesn't really translate over to spices. And I think now is really a great time to kind of learn where your spices come from, where you get that food. And Rumi Spice, Diaspora Co., and companies like Burlap and Barrel are really doing a great job really connecting people to the people that are like basically consumers to the people that are growing your spices. And then I'm gonna add my turmeric to this. And again, as you saw, it's very little. For 2 cups, it's about half a teaspoon. And about 2 tablespoons of sugar in the whole thing. So panna cotta literally means cooked cream. And it's usually made with gelatin, which is not vegetarian. I grew up in a vegetarian family. We did not eat any meat. I've never had any meat or fish in my life. So panna cottas and any gelatin-based kind of desserts were really always off limits for me until I was introduced to agar agar. It's a seaweed extract that basically will gel your food similar to gelatin, but the difference is that gelatin has to be bloomed in cold water and then added to a hot liquid, whereas you can just directly add the agar into your hot liquid, and the agar will melt into the liquid and it'll set. Also, agar is better at being thermo-reversible, meaning like you can warm it up and it'll go back to being a liquid state, which is kind of great. So you can make actually vegan like soup dumplings with this, which is kind of cool. So I'm gonna add my agar in. So agar melts at about 195 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have to make sure you get to that, otherwise it is not gonna set. So if it comes out and you see it being soupy, just throw it back in the pot and bring it to a boil. If you don't have a thermometer, just boil it for 3 minutes and that'll be for sure melted and incorporated into your liquid. So I'm gonna bring this up. So the cardamom and the saffron kind of add a natural sweetness to this dish, which is why there's only 2 tablespoons of sugar in it. You can substitute it with, say, agave nectar or date syrup or any, maybe if you want to use like a low glycemic sugar, like coconut sugar, you can totally do that with this dish. It's not the case for most of the desserts, but this one you can definitely change it out if you want to. You can even, if you want to make it fully vegan, you can change it to coconut milk instead of heavy cream as well. I like to consider this like a healthy dessert because there's turmeric. Oh yeah, and for the love of God, please cook your turmeric if you're making a turmeric latte. Like, put the turmeric in and let it warm up with the milk. Don't just warm milk and then add a teaspoon of turmeric in. Just let it cook. I promise it tastes a lot better. It's mellower. It's not as bitter. It really makes a difference. All right. I'm going to let that come to a boil, but keep a close eye on it because it's cream and it will boil up the sides and end up all over your stove, which has happened to me many times and my mother. So the turmeric and the saffron kind of give it this like neon-y highlighter yellow, like really pretty color to it. When you're buying saffron, or when you're using saffron, you want to bloom it in hot water or warm milk, and that just kind of like gets the flavors going and gets the color going before you add it to whatever your main dish is. So it came up to a boil, and then what you're going to do is pour it very carefully into whatever container you're going to be serving it in. And then you're going to put it immediately into the fridge, and it will set into this kind of custardy kind of texture. To top it off, what I like to do is, let me turn this off, move it off the heat, is make a quick whipped cream. So whipped cream is literally just heavy cream, a little bit of powdered sugar. I use cardamom in it, so it's a cardamom whipped cream to kind of really get that fragrant kind of smell to it. And then you're gonna whisk this essentially, or if you have a stand mixer, use a stand mixer, it's much faster. And when you whisk this for about like 10 minutes, if you wanna be like, make it at home, it's great, but you're gonna take it till it's like kind of a stiff consistency. You don't want it plopping off your spoon, you want it kind of really on there, so it's easy to pipe or spoon onto your final panna cotta. But watch it, be careful. If you go too far, you'll make butter. And you'll see it separate, and you'll see like liquid kind of coming off of it, and you've made butter at that point. Very sweet butter, which maybe you can use in some pastry or cookie, but no bueno for this. So you see this kind of set. I can kind of put it to the side. It's great. This is a pre-made one. This is TV magic. So you're gonna also take some chopped peaches and add about a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of honey to it. And if you are feeling fancy, you can add maybe a little bit of ginger if you feel like. And you're just gonna mix that together. And right now, peaches have been so good. Like, I feel like every season it's always like, oh my God, stone fruit's so good this season. Or strawberries are amazing this season. But really this season, the stone fruit's been amazing, along with the tomatoes. So you're gonna mix that well. And ideally you wanna let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes to let it macerate. So that means all the juices from the peaches will kind of leak out and get really sweet. And you're gonna top each one with a little bit of peach and a dollop of cream and a sprinkle of some pistachios. And that's that. Super simple, super easy. You can make this a day ahead. You can put them in smaller containers. Like I'll buy like the mini shot glasses that you can get from like Party City, and I'll fill those. Like one of these will make about 25 of those mini shot glasses. And it's a great like party dish. You can make it way ahead of time, keep it in the fridge, pull out when you're ready. And it's not too sweet. I think it's like just perfect. But yeah, those are my 3.
I'm curious, how often do you eat dessert when you go out?
Oh, every time. There's times where I have dessert just for dinner, much to like my husband hates it, but I'll buy like, oh, I'll just get an app and a dessert, and that'll be my meal. Gujaratis, the state I'm from, tend to have a really strong sweet tooth. Um, Even beyond that, we tend to be like numb to sugar and always put a lot of it in our food. So it's just kind of like in my DNA to like really, really enjoy sugar and sweet.
So the follow-up question is, how often do you eat your desserts?
Oh, more often than actually no. I'm like one of those weirdos. Like I'll cook it and I'll like taste it while I'm making it, but often I don't. Like right now at home, I have like a gulab jamun bundt cake sitting in my fridge, and a couple other desserts sitting in there from some events, and I haven't really touched it. So my neighbors tend to get it all, or my very pregnant friends who are very happy to take it off my hands.
I was going to say your friends, family, and neighbors must love you.
Yeah.
If there's questions in the audience, just raise your hand. So the other question I'm interested in is you mentioned the inspiration, which was kind of an accident on one of the brown butter cookies. What other inspiration, maybe in your top favorite desserts, are out there? Like, other desserts happen by accident? Was it something that you created from a childhood memory? Like, what are a couple of great stories about the inspiration of some of your favorite desserts?
Yeah. So one of the desserts I really, really enjoy is there's a jaggery monkey bread that's in the book. So the first time when I was in college, my family had a Christmas get together. It was the first time I was seeing my family in a really long time, and they had put me up to like make dessert, and all they had was like cans of Pillsbury biscuit dough and white sugar. And I was like, oh, I'll make monkey bread. And they didn't have any, so I just used jaggery instead. Jaggery is a palm sugar. It's basically the main sweetener in most Indian food in general. And I used that instead, and I ended up like really loving it. It has this like complex kind of burnt caramel kind of bitterness to it, but it's not too sweet, and it just worked really well.
All right, audience questions. Yes.
I just a quick one on what would you use as an egg substitute?
Yeah, so it depends. For cakes, I typically will use either, it depends. So if it has to be like really fluffy cake, then I'll use maybe a vinegar and baking soda substitute, or yogurt and baking soda substitute. If it's supposed to be like a dense, kind of like a tea cake kind of thing, I'll use applesauce. That works great. For cookies, I'll use, usually I just kind of banana, applesauce, things like that. It will impart flavor to it. The applesauce doesn't impart that much flavor, but the banana will. It really depends on like why you need the egg. If you need the egg for leavener to give it lift, then vinegar and baking soda is your best bet. If you need it for moistness, then yogurt or applesauce is great. So it just depends what the purpose of the ingredient is. So I use a cornstarch kind. C&H Sugar is my go-to brand. I find it to be the most consistent brand. The organic sugars with tapioca starch, sometimes they set, sometimes they don't, sometimes they gel, sometimes they don't. So when I was doing my recipe testing, I just found it's better to go with regular old powdered sugar. Yeah, you can totally use it for cheesecakes. Just if you're gonna do a cheesecake, like like boil it in your heavy cream, and then add it to your cream cheese, and like mix it really well, really fast, and then just set it in the fridge, and it'll work just fine.
So if there is 1, 2, let's say 3 top recipes that you would say are a must-do, and maybe not just with desserts, because your book's got a lot going on, what would be the 3 recipes you would suggest that the audience dives into when they get home?
Okay, I'm gonna steal your book real quick. So I kind of like to keep things pretty simple. One of the desserts I would definitely do is a Srikhand parfait. Srikhand is a thick yogurt similar to labna that's flavored with saffron, cardamom. And if you want to be fancy, you can add a little bit of mango puree to it. And I do a parfait with some Biscoff cookies, so speculoos cookies on the bottom, and I top it with whipped cream and pistachios. It's super rich, not that sweet, just really good. Another one I would definitely try is Gari stuffed Italian wedding cookies. So gari is a dessert that's famous in the city of Surat. My dad, when he was 9 years old, left the farm and worked as a child laborer cutting diamonds in Surat. And one of the things he remembers as a kid is eating gari. And gari is basically a mixture of nut powders that's bound together by toasted chickpea flour and ghee and a little bit of milk fat. And then it's wrapped in a whole wheat dough, deep fried, and then depending, might be soaked in syrup or covered in like an icing syrup, like a sweet icing. I did it kind of my way, which I cover it in Italian wedding cookie dough. I grew up in North Jersey. They like filmed The Sopranos in my town. So I was obsessed with like buttery Italian cookies. So I take the filling from the gari and I wrap it in an Italian cookie dough. It's very light, not that sweet, a really good tea biscuit if you're gonna have with cha. And then the last dessert I would say is, it's not really, I don't know if I would consider it dessert, but it's a chundo, which is kind of like a marmalade. So it's made with green mango. So it's not ripe. It's gonna be green and white inside. You grate it and then you cook it. So my mom would make this in the summer. What you do is you take the mango, add sugar to it, and then you put it in a jar and put it in the sun for like 2 weeks. And the sun will evaporate all the water off and you get this sticky marmalade. I kind of shortened that down by using a stovetop, and it's spiced with a little bit of red chili powder, cardamom, and cinnamon. But it's so good with cheddar cheese on bread. Like, it's really good for like a cheese board type of situation. And it's really, really easy to make, and it lasts forever in your fridge.
Huge round of applause for Chef Hetal. Great.